It's the moment you've been waiting for. It's a conversation that must be had today and not tomorrow. Welcome to another episode of I'm Listening, I'm Ready with your host, Andrew E. Guy. Let's talk about it.
Today we're talking about life. We're talking about family. We're talking about personal and public success. Among other things, we're also discussing how to generate and pass on generational wealth from one generation to the next and how to protect it. Today's guest on the show is none other than the mentee of Jamaican-born Black billionaire Michael Lee Chin. His name is David Mullings. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Andrew E. Guy. Welcome to another episode of the Ilirpodcast. I'm listening, I'm ready. It is a podcast that's dedicated for those who are on the go. Whether you're traveling by land, air, or sea, this is me, Andrew E. Guy in the MORNING. Yes, it is another amazing opportunity to showcase some of the bright minds in the world, the movers and the shakers, when we're talking about the financial industry, the investment industry, the leadership, the corporate. It doesn't matter what entity or what part of the marketplace we're discussing. We want to make sure that we are endeavored to bring you the brightest minds of our time. And so today I am so privileged to sit down and have this amazing conversation with a countryman friend of mine, Mr. David Mullings from BMC, Blue Mahoe Capital Partners. He's the chairman and CEO, and we have some amazing conversation to dissect, to get into. So I won't even waste any time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the Ilirpodcast, Mr. David Mullings. David, say what's up to the people.
What's up? Thank you, Andrew, for having me again. I'm so excited to be here and return to the podcast. I love all you do. Love the energy. Love the positivity.
Appreciate it, my friend. Appreciate it, my friend. I know it's been a little while since we talked, man, but you've been doing so much. And I want to tell you, thank you just for taking the time out of your busy schedule, man, to sit and talk with us. But I know that every time we talk, man, we are basically feeding the world because the world is so hungry for information. I'm not talking about incredible because I in front of a word means not, right? But for credible information that they can hang their hats on, credible guidelines, credible examples that they can say, you know what, I can follow this one. And this is what we're going to talk about today, David. So anything new happen in your life right now that you want to, just tell the people, because everyone is wondering, hey, David Mullings is everywhere. He's been featured on magazines. He's blowing up LinkedIn. I'm talking, Twitter is just saying, please let the birds sing. So please, can you tell us really what's up, man, coming from the mouth himself of the man himself? David, talk to us, man. Give us a quick update.
Oh, man. So you've seen, we had an interview in Black Enterprise, so that's the first time
yes.
there. And that was really good. I felt good about sharing with my fellow Black people.
Very good.
About financial literacy, about generational wealth creation, and of course, not overlooking the Caribbean.
Correct.
We had Yahoo Finance, Yahoo InStyle as well. We have some more coming up. I can't name, but there's a big name financial magazine that's going to have an interview with me coming up soon. So that's going to be a really good one to pull back the curtain.
Yes.
And we're plugging away. Our portfolio is doing well in the Caribbean, but we have an impact fund that's on the way. We're really excited about doing that to support people of color and those founders. And then the last one is our asset management subsidiary is now looking at doing a diverse equity and inclusion ETF here in the US to invest in US-based companies. So super
tell
excited
us about that. We want to know about that. And I know in our previous conversation, we talk about, the shirt sleeve, the third generation and the shirt sleeve mindset. And I call it a mindset. So can you please dive into that and just kind of let us know what does that mean, living from shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve? Help us break that down.
So I've been a member of a family office group for 11 years now. And every year when we do our annual retreat in Miami in January, there's a panel that talks about shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. So the idea is that the first generation makes it, second generation squanders it, third generation has to work for it. And that's money. First generation makes the money,
Yes.
The second generation squanders the money. They don't understand the work that was put in. They weren't given any framework
Correct.
of how to manage the money, wealth preservation. And then the last generation, the third one, has to go back and work for the money. So we want to make sure that we pass on frameworks to all of us, to everyone listening, so that they can avoid that same issue. And some stats have actually been out there where it's roughly 90% of the third generation loses the money, 70% of the second generation squanders, loses the money. So how do you ensure that you are not in that 70% if you're a second generation, or not in that 90% if you're a third generation? Or if you're like most people, you would be the first generation to become a millionaire or create wealth within your family. So how do you ensure your children don't squander it?
Right. You know, that's interesting. You know, there's a Bible verse that talk about if you train up a child, right? You know, when you leave them, so to speak, when you release them, then they will not depart. And I know that, you know, this is a financial literacy discussion, but I think the principles still remain that if we want to promote longevity and to preserve the future, there has to be some kind of framework, so to speak, or example that's left behind for them to follow. But leaving the example is just the first step. The most important thing, I believe, David, is the training part. How are we going to train them to manage wealth? Because wealth is a mindset, right? How do we get them over that hurdle to understand it's not just money, it's not just dollars and cents, it's about character behind all of it. Can you help us and give us a few things that we can give to our next generation?
I definitely can. So I'll share with you what Michael Leachin, and one of the few Black billionaires in the world. Mike is my coach. I've known him for 11 years. So he starts with saying you need three things. If you don't want shirt sleeves or shirt sleeves. So number one, you need a framework for managing the money, for creating wealth. And then number two, you need control of emotions. And you control emotions by always reverting to the framework. And then number three, you need access. You need access to good people. You need access to good opportunities. And you need access to capital. Those are the three things. So how do you get a framework? So he has these 5 laws of wealth creation that we go through. So you think of any wealthy person, and that person has usually owned a few businesses. That's number one. Number two, the businesses are domiciled in strong long-term growth industries.
Correct.
Number three, they understand the business and how it makes money. Number four, they use other people's money prudently. Prudently is a key word.
Correct.
And then number five, they held for the long term. If you have a framework, your emotions are telling you something is happening, I should jump in, right? FOMO, fear of missing out. Go back to the framework and always run it through that framework, and you focus on that. But that's now not enough. I know the framework. My kids know these 3 things: framework, control emotions, and then access. They know the 5 laws of wealth creation.
Correct.
I need them to stick to that. You need to build healthy habits. So if you can start your children investing early, following the framework, it now trains them to believe in that framework and stick to it, regardless of what is happening in the world. And, you know, there was an example that was given to us at our family office conference again about the Rockefeller family and how John D. Rockefeller did it with his kids. And it would start at roughly the age of 7 or 8. The idea is that he gives them an allowance every month. And he said to them, okay, 70% of your money can be spent however you want. 20% has to be saved or invested. And then 10% has to be given to charity. Philanthropy was really important to the family. And he said, but for any additional amount that you save or invest or donate to charity, I will match you dollar for dollar. So out of the 70, don't spend some money. You could actually put more into charity or more into investing, just saving, and I will top it up. I'll match you dollar for dollar. So I started my kids at 5. Luke is our oldest son.
Awesome.
Started investing, and then last summer I was shooting some videos to go on our website, go on social media, and I offered to pay them. It was summer, and I said, hey, I'll pay you $50 per video that you helped daddy to shoot. This way they could get involved in the work I'm doing. You want the kids to understand what you're doing and value money, earn it. Don't just give them the money, have them do something. And they got to learn a skill. So, you know, Liam, our middle child, our youngest son, is handling the camera and framing it and pressing record.
Yeah, man.
Luke is the one that's helping with the lights and
Yes.
seeing action and then saying, hey, daddy, you have to do it over. You messed up, right? Pay them $50 each. And I said, great. What are you going to do with the money? You plan to buy any Lego? And we did 3 videos, so they got $150 each.
Yes.
And Luke says, no, we're not spending any of the money. I was like, what? Really? Why are you not spending any? He's like, well, if we put all of it to invest, you have to double our money. This kid, after learning for a few weeks, realized that if we spend none of it, Daddy has to match us dollar for dollar. So he didn't spend any money. So they got $300 each instead of $150 each. And this is a 9-year-old now, man.
That's powerful, man.
Wow. Do that. Teach these kids to invest from early. Have them understand the value of earning money and then the value of delayed gratification.
Correct.
And how it can grow over time. You want to buy the Lego today? Well, yeah, if you invest in a year or a few years, you can buy all the Lego you want. It's just delay gratification.
I absolutely love that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to me for the first time, this is the Andrew E. Guy, and you listen to another episode of the Ilirpodcast. I'm listening, I'm ready. It is the podcast that's dedicated for those who are on the go. Whether you're traveling by land, air, or sea, this is me, Andrew E., hanging out with Mr. David Mullings of BMC Blue Mahoe Capital Partners. Listen, we're having an amazing conversation. Now, David, I know that we didn't tell them the title of this conversation, but I kind of want them to just kind of jump into it and find out what are we talking about here. But the conversation, because most people want a title, what are we talking about? But the conversation is this. It's the big question we're asking ourselves, and it is this. Why is the Caribbean the next investment nirvana? This is what we're talking about. We're also discussing moving from shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve, the mindset of creating generational wealth for the next generation, and not just teaching our children about how to read and how to write, but how to critically think where finance and making money management decision is concerned in delegating a future that's going to transform their life and for the ones that are coming after them. David, I want to talk really a little bit about family before we get into the investment part, because I am a big believer that, you know, if you learn, as we say back on, if you learn for dance a yard, you see me? You know how to dance abroad, right?
Abroad, yes, sir.
And I've coined this and I've said that, you know, success is where you live, work, and play. Most of us are going for the external success. And then by the time we come home, the coop is empty. That means we got all the world's success. And when we come home, there is nobody to share it with. And we see this across the globe, David. And I want to help our Black man, our Black male. I want to help everyone, but I want to zoom in our Black male because we're talking about diversity and inclusion. What are some steps that we can take to help our Black men and Black billionaire, Black leaders, whether you're 100-year, 1,000 or million-year or coming up to a billionaire? What are some steps, life skill steps that we can use to create a framework to help our Black men secure home first before we secure the public success?
All right, well, I'm not a relationship expert, so I want to just put that caveat in there first, right? I go through my ups and downs in my marriage, 14 years, the end of this month, and it has not been easy. So the first thing is that we have to recognize it's not easy, it's not a fairy tale, it requires work, and we shouldn't just cut and run at the first signs of any sort of, trouble. We need to put in the work. So I remember my dad sat me down and said, you can't leave your marriage until you can look your kids in their face and say, Daddy tried everything. And so first question, have you done couples therapy? No. Okay, well, you clearly haven't tried everything. So we as Black men need to be open to doing individual therapy. And then we need to be willing to do couples therapy. The woman also needs to agree to that. But be open to that. I'm not saying that you need the most professional, expensive therapist, but try and have some therapy. So that's one. I think that is helpful to all of us. We all have something we need to heal from. We need to acknowledge that. We're not perfect. And there's nothing wrong with confronting that. So that's one, the therapy, being open to that. Number two is not trying to balance your life. My father doesn't like that term. He says, if you're balancing work and life, it's like a seesaw or a scale. It's never actually balanced. It's over. What you need to do is decide that family is a center and everything revolves around that. So you design your meetings around that, your trips around that. So you're there for your kids. And I'll give you a simple example. It requires sacrifice. It's going to require some financial sacrifice. But I had a big medical scare 2 years ago. And I was in the hospital after coming out of surgery, and I was talking with Dad, and I said I needed to get some stuff off my chest because I didn't know if I was going to survive, right? 10 days in the hospital, we're waiting on some results. And I said, Dad, I am disappointed in you that you are not as wealthy as Michael Leachin, who is also a Jamaican that grew up in rural Jamaica like Dad. But you can't write the size checks that I need now to really scale this business and positively impact hundreds of thousands of people. Right. And so Dad sat me down. He doesn't, take offense. And he says, well, think about this. I could have made a lot of money as a doctor at a private practice. The best day to make money, though, is on a Saturday when everybody's out of work and they're free to come to the doctor. But if I had done that, how many of your swim meets would I have missed? How many of your football matches would I have missed? How many vacations with the family would I have missed? And he says, so would you be willing to have given up those things so I could write you a larger check right now, larger than what we've supported? And I started to cry. I said, no, I wouldn't want you to miss. Those things were so important to me. My dad sat on the bench as the medical personnel on my soccer team when I played for Real Mona in the under-20 competition in Jamaica and for the second division in Jamaica. He did not miss a single match. Under-20 matches were on a Thursday afternoon at 3:30. That was at every match with his medical kit. The senior team matches were on a Saturday. Wherever we had to go around Kingston and St. Andrew, out to Bull Bay to play, that was at every single match. Mom is a nurse. She was at every match I played at in South Florida, every single game. I wouldn't give that up for the world. I don't care how much more money they would have made. I had my parents there. I had their support. I had their love. And if I got injured, guess what? I could trust them. And they were there. So number two is you need to decide that family is first. It's hard. A lot of us think that we're working on this stuff. We're going to create this world for the family to then benefit. And I remember I was saying that to my wife, right? We got into little arguments. I was like, oh, you don't understand. You don't appreciate the work that I'm putting in is going to take care of the whole family, and we're going to be able to live the life we want. And she's like, yeah, well, one, that's if you survive, right? But number two, if you survive, and number two, the kids are going to say, but you are never here. I'd have missed the most important time, right? 0 to 10 years old. That's when I actually form those relationships and form those memories. So we had to figure out a way to get them to be the center. So that's two. And then number three is a friend of mine, Lonnie Geigner. Lonnie runs the Wilkinson Family Group, which has done over $3 billion in real estate deals. He's based out of Seattle. And he presented, he was a keynote speaker at our family office conference in Palm Beach 2 years ago, March. And he said something. He said, I go up on the stage and I'm presenting to these business owners about the importance of having alignment with your team. You need to have, the teams need to be aligned in values. They need to be aligned in mission. And need to be aligned in where you want to go. So mission, vision, values. You need that alignment. You need to meet quarterly with your team, annual meetings. You need to have one-on-ones on a weekly basis, a monthly basis. And so this one guy raises his hand and says, hey, that's great to have all these rules for your business, for the success of your business. Do you do these things with your family? Oh, no. They know why I'm doing it. That's fine. The family knows this stuff. And he said, well, if you go in and you go to your employees and they just say they know this stuff, do you trust them? No, they need to ingrain it. You need to do it repeatedly. And so he says to Lonnie, what this tells me is that the success of your business is more important than the success of your family. And Lonnie said, that's when it hit him. And he basically cried. So he says, we as entrepreneurs, as people creating wealth, you're working in business. You could be a big time lawyer. You're a doctor. You are here creating wealth for your family. Well, the success of your business, the success of your career cannot be more important than the success of your family. So that's number three. The success of your family needs to be more important than the success of your business. So be careful the sacrifices that you make. And I'll be honest, Dad said it to me, my wife said it to me, they said, you tell us that you're doing this business and creating this wealth and speaking everywhere and inspiring people.
Yes.
Because you're doing it for the family and creating it. But that's actually not true. You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your little ego. Right. Admit that it's for your ego.
Yes.
The benefit, there's a bonus benefit that the family gets.
Of course. Trade off.
Really and truly doing it for yourself.
Yes.
So that was something I had to sit back and acknowledge that we all have a little bit of ego. And when you're good at something, let's be honest, very great tennis player, great football player, basketball player, you want to do more of it. If you're a great doctor, a great teacher, you want to do more of it. But you need to recognize that you shouldn't do more at the sacrifice of time with your family, because at the end of the day, if you fail or you didn't do as well as you wanted, you know who still love you? It's your family, it's your kids, it's your parents.
It's true.
That's actually what matters. Do the people who you want to love you actually love you? Mm-hmm. The rest of the people really don't matter. The likes on Instagram, the retweets on Twitter, man, let's be honest, they're not going to show up when you need help in the hospital.
It's true, because Miles Monroe once said that, I know that I'm speaking all over the world, and I know you don't like me. I know you don't love me. You're only after my gift. And it makes perfect sense, because, you know, a good book once said, your gift will make way. It's not your looks, it's not how much you know, how tall you are or whatever. It's the gift, and it's the thing that you're using to transform the world. It's the gift. And so I hope that you're listening, man. We went from one spectrum to the next, but the goal of this is to help us to understand that success is where you live, where you work, and where you play. The play part is what you do to take care of yourself, to take care of your engine, so that when you put that key in the car again, it will start up again. So that's really what we're trying to get people to understand. Make sure success begins at home. And David, I just love what you're saying, is that we need to teach our kids. I'm working with my sons too. They're helping me with the social media posting and all these different things. So it's so much better, instead of saying, oh yeah, you did that, or daddy, you did that, instead of we did this. We did
and this. I want to follow up. There's something else that Lonnie pointed out that really hit me. It applied to kids mainly when he presented, but I said, wow, that applies to relationships as well.
It does.
Now, when you have a child as a parent, you start out as a caregiver for that child.
Yes.
Eventually graduate to becoming a cop. Do this, don't do this. Then you need to move on to becoming a coach. That means to give them frameworks, but they're allowed to make some mistakes and get better. But then finally you need to graduate to being a companion for them. Most parents get stuck somewhere in that coach or in that cop, especially the cop part. Some parents just never graduate from that. But here's the thing. I remember sitting with my wife. It was so funny. So Lonnie allowed me to sit with his wife and their therapist and their third child. And that therapist did a session with me at no cost. And she literally eventually just said, here's the problem. You are leveling up, going to these conferences, reading these books, speaking everywhere.
Yes.
Your wife reads some of them, but she stopped reading. So you feel that she's not leveling up as fast as you, right? I was like, exactly. And she's like, and what are you doing to compensate? You are trying to coach her. I said, yeah, I want her to get better. And she's like, yeah, she didn't marry a coach. She married a companion.
Yes.
So I called my wife. I said, I was like, I think I figured out what's wrong. She's like, what? I was like, man, I'm here coaching you this whole time because I wanted to level up beyond my level, but you learn at your own pace. Well, you didn't marry a coach either. You literally just want a companion. And she's like, finally. Now, that hurt. That hurt. So,
but that's good. You know what? I wouldn't even call that a hurt. I call it an injury. It's almost like a hit to the stomach. That's an injury. That's a blow to the chest, boss. And that's actually good. We need to be injured every now and again to knock back into a place. And that's a great opportunity for us to bridge the gap, because I am also guilty of that. You know, I'm speaking, I'm doing these podcasts, I'm having these interviews with these very interesting people like yourself. And I'm into fitness. My background is in anatomy and physiology, kinesiology, by the way. And so I'm always using this in my training session when I go to meet with CEOs and stuff. I say, okay, fine. Yes, you're doing great business. How is your engine? You got sick a few weeks ago. How are you dealing with that? How can you add wellness to your day so you can actually be a voice around your company? And that's one of the things that I do when I do these corporate trainings. And I come back in the house, I'm fired up. I get up in the morning, I run my 20K, and I'm coming in, I'm like, yeah. My wife was like, good for you. I said, we're going later too, right, dear? She's like,
No,
But the thing is,
I do my own thing.
We're trying to coach them instead of saying, you know what, be the example, but saying love them based on how they met us as the companion that they fall in love with. I mean, David, that's huge stuff, man. That stuff is going to transform the world. It's going to transform the life and the mindset of all the future CEOs. And I'm talking about shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve. So my son won't do what we do. They will do something different because we're putting in these frameworks for financials, but also where you live, where you work, and where you play. Now, David, listen, want to talk really about, why? Why in the world should I or should anyone believe that the Caribbean is the next investment nirvana? Can you talk about that? What does that mean?
Yeah,
what does that mean to you?
We can talk about it easy, and it's exactly what we're talking about, shifting our mindset. So there is this perception versus reality about the Caribbean, right? The perception is that it's a tiny island, tiny market, not much opportunity. My COO or reader calls it the resort distort.
Yes.
So you come down, hang on the resort, and that's all you look at. Oh, these people are happy, but you don't realize that there are billions of dollars flowing through the region, that money is there, capital is being used, wealth is being created. So number one, perception must be different from reality for you to get interested in investing in a region. And these are the three things Michael Leachin says. So perception must be different from reality. Number two, there should be a lack of equity capital flowing into a region or into an industry. So that's two, and that's obvious for the Caribbean. We need more foreign direct investment and what we call diaspora direct investment. So Jamaican Americans, for example, need to be invested down there. And then number three, inefficiencies must be present, but we also need the inefficiencies. There should be willingness to get rid of the inefficiencies. So you think of the Caribbean today, you should think of India 20 years ago. Very similar things. Rapid industrialization, we have a growing middle class, wages are increasing. You look at the democratization of wealth. So 20 years ago in India, a lot of businesses were owned either by the government, right? Government-owned entities, or a few wealthy families. And then they started listing them on the stock exchanges, and the government started divesting businesses. That's the same thing happening in the Caribbean right now. Guyana, Jamaica, Barbados, Bahamas, that's exactly what is happening. So we've seen a democratization of wealth. Another thing that we have to look at is that it's for the most part in the same time zone as the East Coast of the United States. Easy flight from Miami to get to the region. It's well known. It is English speaking, right? Jamaica, for example, is the third largest English speaking population in the Western Hemisphere.
Wow.
It's the US, Canada, Jamaica. We don't think of it in that sense. You have businesses based in Jamaica or Trinidad or Barbados listed on the stock exchanges. They're doing business in 30 countries, in 55 countries. They're in Ghana, they're in Rwanda, they're in Colombia, they're in Brazil. We don't think of them as multinationals domiciled in the Caribbean. We tend to just think of them as Jamaican companies or Trinidadian companies. So that's important to start looking at. But then lastly, British legal system, right? These were former British colonies for the most part. We have some French, Dutch, and Spanish as well. But for the most part, these are on the British legal system. So we feel comfortable sitting in front of a judge in the region. So it's important to think about opportunities. But whatever problems we face in the Caribbean, these are middle income countries for the most part. Same problems in sub-Saharan Africa, same problems in Southeast Asia, same problems in South America. The key thing is it's easier to test it in the Caribbean. It's smaller. It's easier to deal with the government, to deal with regulations. Test it there, and then you can take it to sub-Saharan Africa, where you have language barriers. You might have some other issues, different legal systems. So test in the Caribbean first, scale up, and then export those solutions to other places. So that's how we look at why you should be investing down there and why it matters.
Now, are there any kind of, what's a barrier to entry for creating or getting involved in those kind of I would call them grassroots investment for individuals who are not really there in the domicile. They're thinking about investment. Okay, it's almost like the third eye optic. I am outside looking in, but what the news world or what society is saying or what the media is saying is don't. And I have seen a TED talk by this lady, and she was saying it's just the mindset of the outsiders that they're giving you a gift. We call it aid, but then underneath they are pulling out all the gold and diamond and the resources. So I brought that up because I want to know, are there any kind of barriers to entry that makes it difficult for the third optic eye to actually invest in the Caribbean?
So for example, if you wanted to invest in the Jamaica Stock Exchange, invest in some companies there. Jamaica had the best performing stock exchange from 2013 to 2018, so 5 years. And then in 2018, it was the best performing stock exchange in the whole world. Ho Chi Minh Index in Vietnam was second, and in the US was third. Well, you have an issue though. You can't just go online and buy an exchange traded fund for Jamaica. You can do that for some African countries, Southeast Asia, or even, South America. So there's no exchange traded fund, no ETF for Jamaica or any Caribbean region. That means retail investors would have to open their own investment account in Jamaica. So just like how you'd open a Robinhood account or a Charles Schwab account here, you can't just go online and do it though, right? You fill out 5 pieces of paperwork, you have to give them 2 letters of reference. And it basically feels like you have to give them your ancestral DNA as well. It is just very inefficient to get done. So most people just stop. I'm not going to bother. But even after you get that done, then you need to actually research the companies and build your own portfolio, talk to an advisor. So that's why we are trying to solve that problem. We intend to have something that's listed in the US available to retail investors that has a concentrated portfolio of what we consider the best companies with the best management, best growth opportunities. And they can just go online in 15 minutes, open that account, and then buy our stock. That's ideally what we would want to pull off. And that's what we've been working on.
And to segue into that now, we talked briefly about the DEI ETF US base. So could you please kind of segue into that and help us? Because this is the mindset that you're saying, okay, fine, this is where we should be investing. We should be doing some investment in the Caribbean. But okay, fine, the barriers to entry may be too high or it may be convoluted. How can I make that more easy and more accessible to those who want to? So can you talk to us about the DEI ETFs, US-based funds that you're talking about?
So diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that more people have been talking about finally. We see what's happened with Black Lives Matter. And diversity is important because, first of all, remember that the world is majority non-white. The next 3 billion plus people are going to be in sub-Saharan Africa as well. So you, as a business, need to sell to non-white consumers. So how are you going to do that if you don't have management that's diverse, if you don't have boards that are diverse? So we need to see more diversity at the board level and at the management level. But it's not enough to boycott a company. That doesn't do enough to change. In our opinion, the same way that we're investing in Caribbean companies and helping them to think differently, think bigger and expand, we could do the same thing in the US. Why not? We live here as well. We want to see a better society here, a fairer society. And so the idea was, can we use the same investment framework, the same tools to do it here as well at a different scale? So we have a subsidiary, Blue Mahoe Capital Management. That's our asset management subsidiary. And it's a business. It needs to generate revenue, it needs to manage AUM. Well, obviously, we know how to do ETFs. Let's do an ETF that instead of saying that we need a black version of Nike, what we need is more black ownership of Nike. We don't need a black version of Twitter. We need more black ownership of Twitter. You complain about not having a seat at the table. Well, if you're a shareholder, you automatically have a seat at the table. If you're a shareholder, you have a vote, you have a voice. So BlackRock runs the largest set of ETFs in the world. They have $3 trillion under management. We're not going to be BlackRock, but why not have a Black-owned asset management firm building an ETF that's going to hold some companies to account and also reward the companies that have been doing a good job around diversity, equity, and inclusion? Let's help us minorities to create wealth and have a bigger voice in that annual general meeting, in that proxy, when we're going to vote, and get access to the board, get access to the CEO and upper management, and help them to understand why diversity is actually beneficial to their business and why a lack of diversity is actually an existential threat to the profits of their business. You're on the wrong side of history if you don't care about diversity, which means the business will go bankrupt. I don't think any shareholder wants that.
I absolutely love that, man. Listen, if you listen to us for the first time, this is Andrew E. Guy sitting down with David Mullings. This is another conversation we're having, a very prudent conversation. We went from talking about family, we went to talk about the principles that businessmen and entrepreneurs need to make sure they have embedded in their mindset and in their livelihood, in their everyday fundamental approach to creating generational wealth. We're not just talking about the one that slides on your finger. We're talking about the one that you have to come back home to. Because if you go out there and create all the wealth and have everything, you would have gained the world and lose the very important thing that matters to you most. We call it family. And so this concept of creating this generational wealth is to understand, help us understand that we need to make sure we're successful at home. So when we leave home and come back, the nest is not empty because we have been working and diligently putting all of our sweat equity outside of the home instead of inside where we're living. David, I want to ask you about this quote here. You said, be intentional about leaving something positive in every single person that you meet. Said, you never know the impact it can have when you make somebody smile or make somebody think. So be intentional about that. Positive vibes only. David, talk to me about that, man. I mean, I hear my name in this. It's unreal because I love this, because we always talk about, my goal is to bring out the best in people. Whether I'm doing a podcast or whatever, is to ask those pertinent questions that's going to get the individual or the guest to think or to be at their best self. And so can you please explain this quote and how you are using this in your business?
No, well, I think that's a perfect way to wrap up and close this for your audience. It's talking about leaving, being intentional and leaving something positive in every single person. We have to decide how we react to something, right? The world is not fair. We start with that. You have to react to it. You have to decide, what do I want the result of this interaction to be? Do I want this person to be left feeling negative about me? Do I want to be the person who ruined their day? Do I want it to end in an argument, or do I want to be positive? Do I want them to remember me as a person who was positive, which means they want to be around me more? Nobody likes to be around that negative Nancy. So don't be the negative Nancy.
Yes.
Be positive Paul, pretty much. So I try my best. It's hard, but I do try to do that. I think my wife would admit that. I need to work on it a bit more at home.
Yes.
But in general, I try to be that positive friend, that positive person.
Yes.
If you look at my social media, I'm mostly posting positive stuff. I'm not trying to share negative news, negativity. I'm not here to gossip about other people.
True.
I'm here to leave you feeling better than when you met me. If you work with me, my goal is to have you feel that you can accomplish even more than you thought. I want to uplift people with my words, my actions, and my presence. And that's the idea. I want everybody to want to follow me, to check in what I'm doing, to listen to when I'm on a podcast or if I do an IG live, because they should say, man, I was feeling down, but that post or what you just said really uplifted me. Make people smile. People remember those who make them smile.
Yes, I love it. Find something to smile about. David, I'm telling you, I respect your time, and I know you got quite a lot going on, but I just want to thank you for the opportunity to sit and talk with you once again. And I'm going to give you this last moment here. Normally we do think, fire, shoot, but we know that we're on a time constraint right now. So what I want to do is I want to give you the rest of the time, the next 5 minutes, no, not even 5 minutes, the next minute, to kind of share something that you want to use to empower our audience. Anything that you want to share, anything that you have coming up, any events, whatever you want to plug, this is your time. This is your final words. Go ahead, take it away.
Well, the thing I would want to leave an audience with is something I think you need to think deeply about. And it was very hard for me to confront this, but my sessions helped. I did some mindfulness coaching sessions. And it's this, you have to recognize that you can actually be the bad guy in a story. You have to admit that you can actually do some things wrong. A lot of us think that we are perfect and we blame everybody else. If you stop and pull back, find a way to blame yourself for a situation that didn't go the way you want to go. There's always some role that you played. It's not 100% you, but it's also not 100% them. When you recognize what you did wrong, you're admitting that, man, I was a bad guy for that piece of it, and then work on fixing that. First, you have to forgive yourself, and it's hard for us to be self-critical. It's very hard, yes. Especially if you're an overachiever, right? It's even harder. So you need to be willing to shrink that ego and accept that I was the bad guy, and then apologize. Don't apologize with a but. Don't say, I did it because I was trying to get you to do so and so, or I did it because I love you. Don't do that. Just say, I'm sorry, and I'm going to work on that. It changes your life. I guarantee you that. Change your life for the better.
Yes. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the conversation that must be had today and not tomorrow. I want to thank David Mullings of Blue Mahoe Capital Partners for just coming out and hanging out with us and having this amazing conversation that's going to help you in your financial literacy and also to help you change the next generation where you live, where you work, and where you play. My name is Andrew Eguy. Thank you again for this opportunity to listen to us again and another episode of the Ilirpodcast. Until then, take care of yourself. Talk soon.
Until then, take care. Peace. Until next time, keep listening, live ready, talk soon.